Hi, I'm Portee, fashion and lifestyle journalist and editor of Zayla magazine. I've always been interested in biographies and in the stories of people's lives, basically listening to what stirs their souls. Welcome to the Soulful Side of Life, where I let you in on some of my conversations with inspiring people from around the world in fashion, faith, entertainment, music, and entrepreneurship. These are conversations that stir the soul about people's journeys, about the ups and downs of life, and how they have overcome certain situations. I hope that these episodes will inspire your life in some way, so enjoy over a cup of something hot or on your drive to work. This is the Soulful Side of Life and can be found on Spotify Podcasts or Apple Podcasts. Katherine Garbarino is known by KGMTL, and she's also known for being a virtual bestie to those that follow her online. Montreal-based, she's the founder of K6 and Girls Living Well, and she has her hand in a few other business ventures. She's an open book to her dedicated fan base on topics of health, wellness, fashion, and fitness, and her recipes alongside all of her other tips and tricks have been shared and heard by millions of people via her Instagram and YouTube channel, where she shows her everyday life, like literally shows her everyday life, like her morning routine of lemon water, making her lemon water, and she shows it every day because she wants to stress the importance of drinking lemon water every day. Um, Basically, she just doesn't hold back with her online presence, and it's her mission to leave her followers better off they um, than how they were before they started listening to her for that day or on that topic. And it basically just makes Katherine a walking example of how one's influence via social media can be used for the greater good. Whether it's weight loss stories, shopping must haves, or just pure advice on how to be good at life, she has you covered. In this podcast episode, we talk about health and wellness. We talk about how her early childhood um, contributed to this lifestyle of healthiness that she lives today. We talk about the Real Housewives franchise. And yeah, just enjoy this podcast with Katherine Garbarino, or as she's formerly known, KGMTL. Enjoy. Thank you so much, Katherine, for joining the podcast.
I'm so excited to be here.
Wonderful. Okay, so you're really gifted in entrepreneurship and lifestyle and wellness and connecting with people. But before jumping into that, were you born in Montreal? And did your childhood set the stage to the life that you're living now with entrepreneurship, wellness, lifestyle?
Yes, I was born in Montreal, and definitely because both of my parents, well, mainly my mom was just an entrepreneur that I was always like involved in her life because she had a boutique here in Montreal and had many little career paths before, entrepreneurial career paths before. And then my father as well is also an entrepreneur. And yeah, I definitely think that, wellness and all of that was always something that was instilled in me growing up. It was a big part of our upbringing. We were never a house that had like sugary cereals or sodas. It was always like cut fruit and veggies. And my dad was very on all the like newest and latest, health things. And my parents are both, like working out and cyclists. So definitely instilled in me from a young age.
It's amazing how like your parents and what they are into will come into your life as well. Because my father's a mortician and he's super healthy as a result
Right.
of that job because he always says death starts in the intestines. So he's very just clear on living a healthy lifestyle, and his kitchen table's full of all these healthy things, and it affects my life. It trickled down to the children, the things that the parents are into, and wellness. That's a good thing to get
Yeah,
from the kids.
absolutely. Like I remember when I was younger, even something like having like period cramps or whatever, and I would be like, oh, my mom would be like, go for a walk, get moving. Like you have to, whatever. It was never just like, oh, like sit around. And there was never that kind of like, not even about feel sorry for yourself, but it was always like you need to get moving or like, have something like anti-inflammatory. So totally, it was always like it trains your brain to like do things that way. And really when you're raised that way, that's really how you'll do things, right?
For sure. And your last name sounds Italian. Do you come
Yeah.
from Italian? Yeah, and then, coming from being African American, while the food is great in Italian culture and cooking, and maybe it is probably much more healthier than African American cooking, the Mediterranean diet. Um,
I'm
do,
also Jewish.
okay.
And we were, so that there's a lot of things in like Jewish culture that are delicious, but are definitely on the heavier side as well. So, you
Yeah.
know, it's a balance.
Yeah, like do you balance both sometimes, or do you stay away from the unhealthy things?
I mean, I really at this point don't eat unhealthy foods, if you will. I'm
Okay.
someone who has like a 3 bite rule. So I'll never deprive myself of something. However, I don't really want those things. Like it's not something where depriving isn't the right word because if I see something, I don't know, let's give an example, like a donut, I'm not really tempted by it because it's just something where I know I'm going to feel so crappy after, even if I only have a few bites. But I have this thing called the 3 bite rule.
Hmm.
So where it's things that aren't the best for me, where I know I might not feel the best after, I'll say one to say hello, one to enjoy, and one to say goodbye.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
great way to go about it, because really we just want the taste. We don't really need to eat the whole thing.
exactly. And you also shouldn't, you should like, there's such a joy in enjoying food. Food is such a joy. And I think that there's so much of a relationship to like what we eat, how we eat. There's so much of, I don't know if you want to call it drama around it,
Mm.
but it's something we all have to do to survive, right? So we all have such a specific relationship to food. And I think that it gets really toxic when you are someone who's will never have anything. It's
Sure.
just, you need to be able to have that joy.
Yeah.
Like I said, even if I ate a whole box of donuts,
Mhm.
I know that it wouldn't, from a weight perspective, do anything to me because it's not about what you do sometimes, but what you do all the time. But it's that, would it be worth how I would feel? And it's not. It's not worth how I would feel after. So that's why I limit how much I'll intake of, unhealthy foods.
Of course.
Yeah.
What was your first business venture?
My first business venture was like really that was my own. Was I had a clothing company with my sisters who actually weren't involved in it at all because they were much younger, but they were kind of the face of the company. We used to make leggings and they would actually be really popular now that we were like ahead of our time. At that time, everyone was wearing Vans and like Keds. And we love the look of having a legging, but that kind of opened over the shoe. So it wasn't cut at the ankle. So they were made long and they either had zippers or slits and they were really flattering. And we would incorporate these really like fun details to them, like maybe like a seam down the back or zippers up the front of the leg, or like one side would be like a faux leather and one would be, like a kind of just like a ponte material. And so I did that in my early 20s and then learned some valuable lessons there. I call it was like my Harvard education of entrepreneurship because I wasn't doing the accounting properly. And so we ended up getting audited, and then that was a disaster because taxes changed and I didn't know. And, so I really just learned that you need help. You can't just do it on your own.
Yeah.
And then I actually I got really turned off by that business because I was like so traumatized by having stock and like, having to deal with all this overhead. So I was like, I want to go into a business that has no overhead.
Yeah.
So I started selling people in my community who had a lot of designer stuff that was barely used. I would go to their house, I would go through their closets with them, I would take it and I would sell it on eBay. And then I
Mm.
would just take a commission. So I really didn't have an overhead. It was like whatever I sold, I made money on. And if I didn't sell it, I didn't make money on it. And so I was doing that. And during that, I kind of fell into this Instagram stuff. And then
Right.
from there, I've built different businesses.
What advice do you have for someone? I feel well, that entrepreneurship is a skill. And I've met quite a few business people who they just make it look so easy. And it's really a gift. And for some people, it's not a gift, it's a struggle. Um,
Mhm.
what advice do you have for somebody who it doesn't come naturally entrepreneurship, but they are wanting to move forward in it and, taking it day by day? Yeah, to those who where it doesn't come naturally, but they're still doing it.
Yeah, I think I first of all, I don't think, and this is not to put anyone to derail anyone. I don't think that entrepreneurship is for everyone. I think that you can have an amazing idea
Mm.
and you can be really gifted in certain things. And I think sometimes you need to surround yourself with the people who can really execute those things in the right way. Um, I think entrepreneurship, when it comes down to it, the way I think about it is a leap of faith and just being able to know that like it's never going to be perfect. And I think that you just have to take a risk and
Yeah.
try and be willing to fail. So like my I guess advice would be just try and be willing to fail and don't put anything into it or do anything where it would really impact your life in such a negative way that it would like ruin your life. Like don't go, sell or remortgage your home, things like that. Like do it in an attainable way, and get better at it as you go, and then start making, a little bit more riskier choices. But I think when it comes down to it, every entrepreneur will tell you the same thing. Like they had this crazy idea, they had this like delusional belief in themselves, and so they chose to do it and they took a risk
Yeah.
because that's really the only way, because there's no guarantee, right? Like when you're starting these businesses or you're doing something, it's usually it's either out of a place of passion or it's because you feel that there's this like need for something on the market or
Mhm.
in the market. But you really have to have this almost delusional self-trust or belief in yourself.
Yeah.
And you just have to take the leap of faith
Yeah.
and
And
kind of and roll with where that road will take you. Because you might start thinking you're going to do one thing and be like totally somewhere else,
yeah.
but that was what was meant to be.
Yeah. You're really good at building community through social media. Why is that important in being able to be an entrepreneur, creating community?
Um, so for me, originally when I got into creating the community, I didn't even know what I was doing. It's not like how it is now where people set out to become an influencer or creator or whatever it is. In that moment, I felt like I had so many lifestyle changes that I was going through in terms of like getting healthier and clearing up, like my cystic acne or like my hair, fixing my hair, whatever it was.
Mm.
And I was kind of set on a path by a woman who I really looked up to, who I felt lost because I was doing that designer consignment resale and I wasn't passionate about it. And I was like, oh, I don't really like it, but I don't know if I want to get a job somewhere. And she's like, but you are the business. And she sort of instilled in me like that I was a walking business in terms of just who I am, because naturally as a person, I was always someone that people would come to for where do I get my hair done? Or where do I go for this? Or what do I buy my girlfriend? Or like, what's the best jean? So I was always I think that I just naturally had that.
Mm.
And then with Instagram, I was just sharing what I loved. Like, so if it was in the, I was just sharing whether it was whatever supplement was working for me in that moment or why I was taking something. And I think that I'm a bit long-winded and I think that I really love information. I'm a Gemini and we collect information really easily. And for whatever reason, I guess the way in which I narrate that information lands with people because I'm talking about things that maybe you would generally hear from like more of a professional, whether it be like a doctor or a naturopath or someone in like the health field. But because I'm just like your everyday person, it was probably landing better. And I think that just because I was so interested in it and I was so passionate about it, whoever was watching me resonated with that and felt inspired by that. And then they told like the next person. And I think that things just grew really organically. And then once I saw that I had this engaged audience, I had already started, going into partnerships with different companies and things like that. But then I realized like, well, why am I going to give this away? Like, why am I just going to, you know, make money for other people? Again, going back to that delusional, if you will, like belief of myself. I was like, well, if I could do this, like, why do I need them? Or why do I need to do it for them? I'll do it for myself. And so knowing that I could have that community that would follow me no matter where I went or what I talked about, is really what brought me there, you know? But I do think it's important. I think it's always easier to build a brand or a business when you already have the community, of course, right? It's a lot harder to build that community when the brand's going because you're like have this pressure on you to make that money back or, you
Mhm.
know,
Mhm. For sure.
support your staff and all that.
And I think it's a gifting being able to build community online. It's a skill in and of itself. What's a typical day like for you?
So if you would have asked me this like two years ago or a year and a half ago, it would have been so different. But now that I have I have three businesses, but two like e-com businesses where there's like physical things that need to go. Now I'm always in the office, but basically on average, I wake up around like 5:30 in the morning. I get up, I have a very extensive morning routine, which really just consists of things that really set me up for like a good day. I have a lot of wellness habits. And then I'll generally always do a little segment or something. I'll check in on Instagram with my community, which is kind of my thing. I'm like a morning person. I feel like people know me to be there in the morning every morning. So I'm there to some degree. Then I go work out, get ready, get into the office usually around 9:30 or 10 o'clock. And then I sort of, go about my day, and every day looks different. But generally, there's meetings. I'm paying bills. I'm placing orders for one of my for my shop. I'm doing in the afternoon more. I do design things for K6 because my manufacturers are in LA. And then I usually leave the office around 4. I always have lunch with my husband because his office is attached to mine. Um, leave the office around 4. Generally I'll have sometimes I have, a manicure or I have a facial or I have some sort of appointment. If I don't, I go home, I prep dinner, prep lunch for the next day, walk my dog, chill with my dog, eat dinner pretty early, usually before 6, in bed by like 7:30, 8
Oh,
o'clock, like probably, and then like asleep by 9:30 and starts all over again the next day.
wow. So do
Yeah.
you feel that going to bed early is essential for entrepreneurs?
I honestly, if you would have asked me this a few years ago, I would have said yes.
Okay.
Because I believe that so many successful people really, and for myself, it changed my life waking up really early. But I think it so depends on the person. I believe that it's the best way, but there are people who are just not morning people and who really thrive at night. I really, by like 4 o'clock, I'm like a useless person, like to talk to. Like I really am such an early morning person and I'm so much more productive then. But I know people who are super successful, who have businesses that are, they thrive at late night when they're on their own and they
Mhm.
get so much done. I think that every person's different, so it's really hard to say.
Yeah,
But I do think like for the most part, yes, because yeah.
gotcha.
And also like most people are working at that time, right?
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. It probably, I mean, I guess it's always based on too, is getting the work done. Are you scaling your business? And if it's growing, even if you're awake at 1 or 2 in the morning.
Like
Um,
who else is awake for you to if you need to talk to? But then
exactly.
like also there's so much to be said about especially being an entrepreneur. It's so important to have that alone time and to reflect and to like be able to like I do so like I find everyone's always like, how do you find the brands you sell? Like how do you discover them? And it's like those are things that are done on not when I'm sitting in an office, right? It's done in my free time. It's done at different points. Like it depends what your industry is, what your business is. But so much of being an entrepreneur is that alone time and happens within those routines that you have for yourself. So for everyone, that could be different.
For sure. I find that creatives tend to stay awake till 1, 2, 3, 4 in the morning, like
I could
music
never.
artists. Yeah, yeah. So,
I
yeah.
could
Um, in your opinion, what's the key to having a good work-life balance? And then you put your health first as well. How do you balance being married and having a business and health?
So I'm someone where no matter what, I come first before anything. Like my how I feel, my routines, those are first. Even exercising and things like obviously on the odd occasion, like if something is, you know, an important, it takes precedence. Like if I have a photo shoot that day or whatever, like of course I'm gonna miss the gym that day. But for the most part, my work revolves around me. Like it doesn't revolve, I don't revolve myself around my work. And I think for me that's what makes sense. And it will always be because there's so much more. I really believe in energy. And I feel like when you rush things is not the right word, but when you put too much pressure on the wrong thing. So if I just focused always on work and making money and whatever it is, like I really believe that energetically, if you're aligned and you're doing and you're like setting yourself up right, things will flow to where they're supposed to. You have to put the like infrastructures in place, of course,
Mhm.
but I see it with so many people where they're just so bogged down by like their work routine and it's their number one priority and it's all that matters and it's like they're blocked all the time.
Mm.
Whereas like it has to just be this like it's kind of like a dance, you know? So you have to know where to like draw the boundary. I could be on my phone all day. I could be working 24 hours a day if I wanted to, but like I go home and like I told you, by 4 or 5 o'clock, like I'm done pretty much. I'll still check in sometimes on Instagram or I'll do a night routine if I want to, but for the most, or I'll get some work done if it's needed. But for the most part, my phone is off by 7:30, 8 o'clock, like airplane mode,
Mm.
personal time. And I just think that if I didn't do those things, I would burn out and I wouldn't be successful. It just, yeah.
Yeah, it's about having, like, those boundaries and, knowing when to, like, block off that
And also,
time to do other.
absolutely. But also, like, even if I did, let's say, work even more or do whatever, then I would probably not enjoy my life. I wouldn't enjoy what I'm doing. And then what's it all worth? Like, okay, so maybe I'd have a little bit of extra, like it's relative to me, like money and money doesn't like success doesn't equate to just dollar amount. It's like it's a 360 approach. Like, am I happy? Am I excited to go to work every day? Is it, do I, you know what I mean? Like, do you feel that like fire and that passion? Because if it's just about dollar amounts, for
Mhm.
me, like that fades and it's you could kind of,
I hear you.
yeah.
Um, are there any supplements that you recommend that everyone should take no matter your gender, age, or if you're on prescription medications that are just good for the microbiome? Yeah,
Yeah,
that
I mean, it's such a hard question because I get asked it all the time. And while I would generally say, like, everyone would probably, you could probably take vitamin D and like omega-3, fish oil or some sort of DHA and like B vitamins. It's so, um, like everyone is so different. Like I do blood work often and like my vitamin D is high, which
Okay.
is rare, but it's high. So like I could say that and then you could end up, so I really think it's important that each person really takes their health into their own hands and really does do proper blood work to understand what they need. And then even for example, the one thing when you say gut health, like I would think is, yeah, everyone could really benefit off of like a probiotic or a prebiotic or, a symbiotic of both.
Mhm.
But then there are people who have so many people have bacterial overgrowth, which they don't even realize. But then your feet, even though it's better bacteria, you might be feeding that. So it's so hard to say because everyone is really so individual. So in the past, I would have given you a list of things. But as time has gone on, I just realized how different we all are. And like we all need such different things. If you said to me, a more specific situation, like, okay, there's a girl in her mid-30s, she wants to get pregnant, she whatever. Maybe I would say, yeah, everyone could benefit from this, or this. but I find it such a hard thing to answer because the more I do my own blood work, the more I realize like, oh, like I always took a multi-B vitamin and I would always tell you everyone should take a multi-B, but my B12 was so high that it
I
was almost like ridiculous, you know?
So then do you recommend going to like a holistic
Yeah.
place where they do blood work and then you sit down with someone,
Yeah, like
maybe
a functional practitioner,
yeah.
functional, in the States, it's different than in Canada. In Canada, it's harder to just get blood work. You really have to get it through like your medical doctor.
Mm.
In the US, I believe you can get blood work requisitions through people like functional, or naturopaths and things like that. And I really think it's so important to reframe this like, oh, I go to my doctor when I'm sick, or I go to my doctor. I think medical doctors are amazing if you have an acute situation like a broken limb or you need a surgery. But I think it's so important to work with someone. I would not go to a doctor for anything to actually do with my health.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
my dad says
And
that.
it's not that I'm putting down any doctors because I think that it's an amazing thing, but the reality is they just don't actually, what it's become is so different than what it should be, right? It's all about, you know, they're more like just giving you medications for things rather than really ingraining lifestyle changes or supplemental changes or things of that nature. And what happens when you get on some of these medications, which again, I'm not putting down medications, sometimes you do need them,
Yeah,
is you're on this trajectory to just always be on medication, you know? So I think always the first line of defense is to find a person that you can really relate to, in a functional space or naturopathic space that's more holistic
yeah,
and I can look at you as a whole and just be like, okay, and figure it out. And then, like I said, doctors,
yeah,
it's more for things that are like you really need attention on, like right now.
yeah. Then go to them. Do you have any thoughts on colostrum?
Yeah. So listen, like I'm not one of these people that's against anything. I'm very open-minded and I'm very like there's this new trend. I'm very turned off by things that are overly promoted. I think that that's just human nature where if you see something so much, you're like, this cannot be all it's cracked out to be. Like, why is it being like, if it's so great, why does everyone need to be being paid to talk about it, right? However, colostrum is, as mammals, like as humans, it's like it's what the first 72 hours of life, it's like the most important thing that we can get in. I mean, I think it's great. I think like some people don't relate to it. I think like I said about energy, you have to have some sort of energetic connection to the things that you're using. If you see it and it calls to you for whatever reason, and you're like, you know what, like I'm going to give this a try, and you feel like it resonates with you, and if you feel like it's doing something for you, then great. Because I think that mental relationship to whatever you're taking is so important.
Sure.
Do I think people need colostrum? No. Like I think that if you have a really, impaired immune system or you just fought a virus or whatever it is, maybe you've been on immune suppressants, whatever your situation is, I think it can be really helpful. But do I think a healthy individual who really takes care of themselves needs to take colostrum every day? No.
Gotcha. Okay. Um, okay, so you're a Real Housewives fan.
Yeah.
Um, what benefit do you see the Real Housewives bringing to this generation? I know that like your husband collaborated with Caroline Stanbury, and that could be one benefit, that being able to collaborate with the housewife. But do you think that there's like some good lessons that we can learn from these shows in our
So I think there's like two parts to it. So of course, yes, these women, okay, number one is that I think it's phenomenal how it's reframed women in their 40s and 50s and 60s. And, a lot of times in the past, I think so many of these women are creating these brands for themselves and becoming entrepreneurs after motherhood. And like, I think that that's really inspiring. And I think it's so amazing for women to watch who are maybe, stay-at-home moms and who have never embarked on their own entrepreneurial journeys, or even though these women do have a different type of platform, I think that it's such a nice thing to watch because most of the women that go on these shows, maybe they start off just, as a stay-at-home mom or whatever it is, or a lot of them are coming on with careers. So I think it's really inspirational for women to see that and all different, types of women and what they're doing. So that's the first thing I will say. I don't love that so much of the shows revolve now around fighting. I
Yeah.
think when the franchise first started, there was always going to be arguments, like there would be in any friend group. And of course that adds the element of, entertainment and drama, but it feels like every episode there needs to be some sort of conflict and then like some sort of resolution. I still think it would be so inspiring just to see really powerful women doing their thing. I feel like I don't love that there's this, it's like, why can't there be a little bit of that? Because it will happen naturally. It feels a bit forced,
Yeah.
you know, like
Yeah.
it's taking it to a new level. And it's almost like these women know if I don't bring it, I'm not going to get signed on, and then my businesses are going to suffer. Or which type of amazing women are we missing out on who
Hmm.
don't want to sign up for these shows because they don't want to have to drag their names through the mud,
Yeah.
create drama, but we're missing out from so much we could be learning from them, like I said, or being inspired by them. So that's, you know,
I
it's like,
agree. Like it when I watch, and I used to watch them a lot, like New Jersey was my favorite. But I just got tired of the fighting. It was too much. Maybe if I learn anything from it, it's like when to keep your mouth closed in friend
yeah.
groups and
But what I'm saying is like, what if I'm sure there's like a lot of these amazing, like I feel like they're bringing people on now who don't maybe have as much influence and don't have as much, yeah, influence and like
for the
that you
ratings,
look
maybe.
up to, right? But they know that they'll like fight. So
Yeah.
they're gonna bring them on for that. So it's like, can't we find a middle ground where it's naturally going to happen anyway when you put like seven women together, that there's going to be
Yeah,
differences, right?
for sure. I
Yeah.
just it's like you said, I wish that they would bring on women that you could learn from, and but maybe it doesn't bring in the ratings. It wouldn't be spicy enough to just
I
talk
mean, I
about.
think that that's what we've been trained. It's like we're so even if you watch the news now, like it's everything is like you need. It's like all about these dopamine hits, and it's like it's it would bring the ratings, but like now they've gotten everyone accustomed to this type of
Drama.
drama.
Yeah.
Because look at shows like Shark Tank, or I'm just giving like an example. Like these shows are really popular. People love them. It's
Yeah.
not dramatic, it's inspirational, right? Like it's all about like the way that you frame it, but this has become the franchise now. The franchise has now become all about fighting.
Yeah. Which
Yeah.
is unfortunate.
Yeah.
Okay, so last question. I know you have K6. What are your other two businesses, or how can people support the products that you are behind?
So number one, my first business is being an influencer.
Yeah.
And creating my community. From there, I started Girls Living Well. So www.girlslivingwell.com, which is my membership-based platform. It's a lifestyle website. I have so much information. We have over 250 like healthy, clean eating recipes, tons of beauty advice, tons of wellness advice, tons of just like, it's like it's really my mission is for you and everyone to be their own guru. Like stop just blindly listening to anyone on the internet and really take things that you hear, bring them in, and then like do the research for yourself and just be able to relate it to your own life. Similarly to what I was saying about the answer for supplements or for anything else, like we're also individual and nobody knows more than you know about yourself. And we really need to start to learn to trust our bodies. And by doing that, you need to educate yourself, right? So that's what my website's all about. And then from Girls Living Well, I started the Glow Shop. So Glow stands for Girls Living Well. The Glow Shop is basically a collection and a curation of my favorite things and the things I use every day. So from skincare to wellness products, body products, supplements, we really sell everything. And that came out of a need because one was that as an influencer, the brands that I wanted to work with, I want to work with brands that I use, right? I don't just want to work with whoever has budget for me. And most of the brands that I use don't have budget because they're independent, they're non-toxic. So I was like, I believe in my ability to convert. I believe in my community. So I created my own store. So instead of being paid by the brand, I make that margin in between. And then on the other side of it, I am in Canada, and there's a lot of the brands that I sell, they don't ship to Canada, they don't sell to Canada. So I bridge that gap for Canadians. And then, so that's the Glow Shop. And then K6 started It's my basics brand, but it's like more than just basics. It's really everyday wear. I literally wear it every day. And again, I made it for me. I was found that there's so much out there and there's so much clothing, but it was just never quite right or at the right price point and the right materials, not as flattering as I'd want it to be. And it made getting dressed, having K6 makes getting dressed for me easy.
Yeah.
Instead of it being this like ordeal where I'm trying on 500 things. It's just always feel good in it. You always feel comfortable. You feel confident. And so, yeah, those are my brands for the moment. And I have a book.
Oh,
Oh yeah, we're not on
yes.
camera.
The
And I
book.
have a cookbook. So my book is basically based off of a challenge I used to do with my audience. So it was called the KG challenge. So I would challenge people to like eat how I eat. So you would cut out like gluten and dairy and refined sugars and hydrogenated oils for a certain amount of time. And from there I created the book. So there's like meal plans in here, there's fridge staples, pantry staples, and then there's over 55 recipes.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, you're very inspiring. You've got this
Thank you.
energy and how you connect with your followers and the wellness aspect. It really just draws people in.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been so lovely chatting with you.
Too. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I hope that you enjoyed this podcast episode and that you have found a soulful connection to the conversation. God bless you, and until the next episode, go bless somebody else.